So I have my book with him, and I passed my book around for everybody to sign, some of the natives that were there. And there was one native that wrote in black ink, you can see that there. So I'm gonna read that, and here's what he said. To the Lady of Medicine, now this was in 92, okay? To the Lady of Medicine, and may the spirits of Grandpa be with you, and look to the good of the pipe. Ho. Respectfully, Wambi Glike, Gideon Bison. And when I read it, because they were all gone, then I thought, oh, he probably thought he was writing somebody else's book. Because I don't have a pipe and I don't do medicine work. So 8 years later, fast forward, I had a real bad blood clot in my left leg when I was pregnant with my second baby. It was up in the groin area. It was complete blockage, so the blood was going in, couldn't get out. When the doctor seen it, he said, Jenny, if that breaks loose, you're dead in 3 seconds. Boo. That's how he announced it. Anyway, it was really serious. I was in the hospital a long time. It was 3 months before I could walk. Well, 8 years later, guess what? In that 8 years, somebody gave me a pipe. I also started doing energy healing work. But whenever I got the announcement that I had another blood clot, this time it was due to a fibroid tumor. So they injected me with lots of blood thinner like they did before. But this time my heart reacted and it started beating super fast and wouldn't stop. It was between 150, 160 beats a minute. And steady Eddie, and 2 nights I couldn't sleep. I called my doctor and I said, can't we undo this? Because this is not good. And she said, Jenny, you don't have a choice. So then a friend of mine in St. Louis who was Native American said, I know a guy who's a very powerful healer and he's up in North Dakota. And he gave me his number and stuff and I called him. And he was more than happy to come down, to drive down. And I thought, wow, that's nice. So on the way down, I began to feel energy in my stomach really strong. And I thought, wow. So I called him and I said, are you working on me? And he goes, yeah. I said, man, I can really feel it. Can you maybe back off a little bit? And he goes, well, that's good. You feel it that good. And I said, yeah, if we got to talking. And then he mentioned Fool's Crow. He said he was Fool's Crow's grandson. And I said, wait a minute, I got his book. He just had a granddaughter, or daughter and a granddaughter. And he goes, well, I came from his first wife. So he came down, and then I found out his name was Gideon Bison.
Thank you. Thank you. Eagle always used to say that I had a message, and I didn't really see it that way, but now I do. So, if you wish, I shall sing for you a song of bright enchantment, weave a web of silver strand, call to mind and light and innocence, with which you may travel free across this gracious land. But first you must work against the veil of dark attachment. Draw back the curtain with a stay, yet unseen hand. Conceive in the soul's direct advancement by believing in words that only your heart can understand. For in this time of lost remembrances, where the greater dream forgets the lesser man, we're all in danger of living out our lives as shadows, bound up and blinded, then flattened by the contours of what this surface world demands. When I'm old, I want to stand on emotion's edge when the first storms of the season have come, to beat the land with 100,000 miles of wind, just like a giant fist on a mighty drum. When I leave this earth, it will be beneath the foaming wave of a roaring sea, to merge again with the ancient currents of a surging faith that have for so long crisscrossed inside of me. Yes, someday I shall fall asleep on the rising tide, with salt and sand in my hair. And when I wake again on the other side, I know that I will find both an angel and a devil waiting there.
For instance, I had a woman who had a trigeminal myalgia, which is like a level 10 pain that goes through the nerves in your face. And she was taking lots of pain medication. She couldn't feel the pain. Well, she felt the pain, but she couldn't feel the depth of it because it was kind of numbing out from trying to just deal with the pain. But I invited her to breathe gently, which is the second breath you're going to get. But also she breathed the first breath that I shared. But to really, whatever the breath, was to feel 1% more softness. And she decided to stop taking her pain medication. She was told by the doctors that she would never recover from this. And within a few sessions of practicing breathing softly, feeling 1% more softness and breathing fully, connecting to her power, she no longer has the pain because she's feeling in her body, right? I'm not suggesting, oh, don't take pain medication when you are feeling in pain. I'm not a doctor, so this is not medical advice. However, the practice of being courageous to feel, and not just feel physically, but also to feel emotionally, or to go into the memory that maybe did not feel so true in your life or in your lineage's life. Because when you keep breathing, not holding the breath, but when you keep breathing through it, you can transmute the energy very rapidly.
Account. So this is closer to where I grew up in the Chicago area. This is another one of those mound sites, and there are literally hundreds of them. Unfortunately, 90% of them are gone. They were just in the way, farmed over, plows tore them up, but some of them survived, and they're very remarkable because they're mostly laid out like a Mayan or Aztec city plan grid with a central pyramid made out of mud or dirt because they didn't have stone to quarry, including out here. We were looking for maybe some petroglyph sites. And I told my friend Jeff, I don't think there are going to be any because there's just not that many stone faces where you could create. Similarly, creating a pyramid out of stone would be difficult when you don't have stone. So they built their mound sites out of mud. How many of you have heard of Cahokia Mountains? Just outside of St. Louis. Well, Lily and I were at a conference there with Journey to Truth, and we did a little documentary. We were both in it. They found giants there, but they don't tell you that in the visitor center. In its day, 1,000 years ago, Cahokia had a larger population than the city of London.
Anyway, it was really nice to hear both Jenny and Aaron talking about the heart resonance, and that was a great setup for what we're doing. And I really appreciate everything that Brad talked about too, because I was actually going to touch a little bit upon one of my passions of spiritual archaeology and sacred sites and share an ancient alien artifact with you guys. But anyway, let's see, where do I even begin? I guess it was about 15 years ago that my sister, who's been my energetic mentor for this whole time, did a distance healing on me, and I was so blown away because I'd gone to college for like 20 years, and I was like, no, this stuff's not real. Well, man, yeah, it blew that left side of my brain totally away. And since then, it's just been this really fast journey through awakening. And I'm sure most of you guys know that whole process of awakening, and you get all excited about things, and you go down all these rabbit holes and all the good stuff. And I feel like after the 15 years, I've kind of reached a little bit more maturity with it all, and really stepping out of a lot of the macchio, the spiritual BS, the rabbit holes that we all go down into that really don't get us any closer to who we are. But then again, the earth has gone through so many changes. I used to be this master angelic light warrior fighting the dark, and I was always out there working with all these civilizations that were feeding off of humanity and all the good stuff like that. And so that's what I did for over 10 years. And then there was a shift that occurred in 2019. One of our friends talked about it, and I didn't really believe it because I used to walk down the street and somebody would say something really off the wall to me, and I would just look, and I would always see that there was this entity attachment, and it was just getting my attention, and so it would help them clear what we at the time called a soul contract with these beings, but really it was just a choice. And that's going to be one of our big topics today, is the superpower of choice as you start to step into your realization. Realization, ascension. Like all the ascended masters, there only used to be 20 years ago, there was only 3,000 ascended masters. Now there's hundreds of thousands.
This is a beautiful lady, Diane Robbins. She is known as the ambassador to Telos. I saw this ad in UFO Magazine when I used to write for UFO Magazine, and I asked my editor, Nancy Burns, what's going on with this ad? I keep seeing it, and it just kind of strikes a nerve with me, right? And she goes, oh my God, Diane Robbins is one of our best advertisers. We've been needing someone to go up and get the story. So that's how I got the story, to go up to Shasta and talk to Diane Robbins. Now, at that time, I really didn't understand channeling. I was really pretty skeptical. I have a little bit different view of it now. My big thing with channeling is you don't really know who the being is. No matter what they sell you, there's no way to really corroborate what the being is. And, I've talked to different channelers, and they say, well, you can feel it in your heart. Well, okay, I'm not going to deny that from anyone, but I also know and recognize and acknowledge that we have the technology to make a person feel any way someone wants it to. It's called electronic warfare. You guys familiar with Sabrina Wallace? Any of you guys? Look up Sabrina Wallace, man. So they're hacking our biosphere, and they've been doing it for over 100 years. And they're turning us into data routers, right? So just go look that up. That's a whole nother article or lecture. So I'm boning up to go talk to Diane Robbins, and here's some of the stuff that I'm looking at. So there's newspaper articles all from the early 1900s, maybe 1890s, talking about giants and UFOs and other phenomena. This particular one that I have shown here from the Black Bear Gazette, 1937, shows a Sphinx rock. So there's a really curious rock formation in Mount Shasta that looks like the Sphinx. And if you've ever been to Mount Shasta, you know that place is full of all kinds of occult phenomena, and it's just a mishmash of all kinds of things, and I love it up there. It's one of my favorite places. You got the lenticular clouds that are associated with Mount Shasta. Ascended master people say those are alien ships. There's a rendition of a hollow earth, and if you study the hollow earth stuff, aliens and high technology and these kinds of things are all associated with that.
So my name is Monica Dunn, and I came out here from Washington State. Thank you so much, Nikki, for organizing this and bringing us all together. And I'm very honored to be a part of this, so thank you. So I'm going to do something like a sound bath. I call it a sound attunement because really I feel like it's more getting tuned to what you need, and I have no idea what that experience might be for you, and everyone tends to get just what they need, and it could be an activation, it could be healing, it could be cleansing, it could be anything. So what I suggest, and I'll just give you just a little bit of my background. Rhonda mentioned a few things, but so I've been singing my whole life and doing healing work for the last 20 years, and so one day some friends were together, and what we do in the quantum healing hypnosis world is for fun, we get together and we hypnotize each other and we channel, and those are the things we do for fun. So one night we were in Durango, and we were one of my colleagues was channeling, and we asked questions, and I said, I know I'm going to be doing something else for work other than QHHT, and I said, any ideas what that might be? And she said, you're going to be using your voice in a new way. And I was like, okay, that sounds fun. And so Tracy, my friend here, the instigator, the activator, she said, okay, here's what we're going to do. After the channeling was finished, she said, I'm going to lie down and you're going to just start toning over me. And I had just been gifted some bowls 2 days before. And I was in New Mexico, and then we went to Durango. It was just so divine. Anyway, So what happened was Tracy ended up having a bit of a journey with my toning and the bowls, and actually quite a journey. And then we found out that the other people in the room had the same journey, which was really pretty phenomenal and beautiful. So who knows if many of you might go to the same place, or whether you will go just inward, or we have no idea. So what I suggest is that you set an intention and just allow for whatever wants to come in for you.
The conference was the first of its kind for hundreds of people. People came from all over the world. People showed up, and they don't even know why they showed up. I'm just supposed to come here. I don't know why. And after 3 days of conference at the Wagner School in the auditorium, we're coming out, and nobody wants it to end. We'd had the most magical, spiritual, amazing experience, and nobody wanted it to end. And in the grassy area outside the door, there was a small group of people that were holding hands and chanting and going in a circle, clockwise, of course, sunwise, and automatically, without saying a word to anybody, everybody who left the conference joined hands, and the circle got bigger and bigger and bigger. Hundreds of people holding hands and chanting, I am the soul, I am the monad, I am light divine, I am love, I am will, I am fixed design. And as we were chanting, above us, a cloud formation started. And it was this giant circle, and off to the west was a giant bird who had a piece in its beak. And Standing Elk, at that time he was Standing Elk, he came out and he told us, don't you people understand what you have done? We were mending the sacred hoop. It had been in prophecies for indigenous people for many years, and we had done it with the conference, with the energy, with the love, with the healing, with the teachings. We were mending the sacred hoop, and I believe it was a crane with the piece of hoop in its mouth, and it was bringing it to seal up the hole in the hoop. We were mending the hoop.
I flew around the States for a minute and met up with some people, and then when I came to South Dakota, he picked me up from the airport. And when he picked me up, and I still hadn't seen a picture of him. So I didn't know who I was talking to. I didn't know he had a Facebook page. I didn't know his name was Lauren Zephyr. I just know Chief Golden Light Eagle. So, but as soon as I got off the plane, I looked over, I recognized him. And I recognized him because of the dream, because of that vision. And I looked at him, and he looked right at me, and he said, Eddie? I said, yeah. He said, okay, let's go.
The way that I carry my pipe is, some people say it's difficult. You know, I think my thought on that is there might have been a chief or something one day that came out of his teepee and maybe had an argument, or a situation that wasn't so good was going on, and he came out of his teepee and said, oh, this life, this way, it's so hard. It might have been for them few seconds or that moment, but when I think about it, carrying a pipe it's easy, because I wouldn't be able to be a good bad person. You know, if I was a bad person, if I'm doing drugs and drinking every day, you know, that's a hard thing to do because you have to have money to do that, you know. People don't trust you because, you know, maybe you start stealing or whatever. You have to look over your back all the time because you're in trouble, you know. And there's no freedom in that. There's zero freedom because, you know, maybe people burn bridges and you can't get the help that you want. You need help you need some money to buy some drugs, you know. No one ain't gonna help you.
Because it's in all of us. Every single one of us. Nothing special about it at all. And everything special about it. But we all got it, so it's not special. I think it's so cool. So what she also taught me is that she's just a representation of the divine feminine archetype. She's all of us, within all of us. So when I was giving her the pushback, like, why are you talking to me? Why me? She was kind of like, yeah, get over yourself. I'm in everyone. I'm talking to everyone. These messages are being given to everyone. So cool. I'll share them too then. And then we'll all help each other to remember. That's all we're doing here, walking each other home. It's really beautiful. So she said to me, we've come to help you cleanse your fertile waters from the filth of the patriarchy. This is where my mind I don't think this way. The filth of the patriarchy. I heard this and I was like, what? What are you saying? What does that even mean? I didn't even know what it meant. So, of course, over time, it came. And she explained it to me. Last night, we had the opportunity to do a sweat, and one of the main messages I heard was, listen to the women. What she told me once was, listen to the waters. And of course, I was still not getting it quite yet. And I was sitting by the water, and so I'm listening to the physical water, like listening to the babbling, you know, going over the rocks. She said, no, listen to your waters.
Yau maru rakunamu kumasiya kia ranupea ramumara reke sita kumu.
Now turns again to 3. For if by chance our shadows cross, and the earth is forced to compromise, from the very depths where light and dark are one, a cascading sense of self begins again to rise. Vibrations of an ancient spirit, ancestral of the fiber of the tribes, entered skillfully by way of my feet and flowed upward out my eyes, in the grasp of every waking moment, undoubtedly left by those who sent it, to be offered up in the speech of the one who knows it, is a hidden pathway built of steps well worth the learning, each one an open gateway of non-returning.
You can only trust the Bible. You can only trust what the pastor says. And I learned somewhere along the way that I had this sense of knowing, this intuition, but I wasn't sure how to connect into it. Along my pathway and my journey, I learned about this woman named Dolores Cannon, who has this technique called quantum healing hypnosis technique, and she has a way for you to get in touch with your intuition and maybe your guidance team, the things we don't know about. And I was so moved by that. There was another man named Dr. Michael Newton wrote a book called Journey of Souls. And these two pioneers in consciousness showed me that I could get in touch with that. And so I contacted Dolores Cannon's group and talked to her daughter, Julia. And Julia said, oh, you've got to talk to some people that I know. There's a woman in Scottsdale, Arizona named Erica Middlemist. You have to talk to her. And I was like, oh, that's just a few miles from where I live. And so I spoke with her, and she said, there's another woman named Tracy Mahan, and you need to talk with her. And I was like, oh, she lives in Portland. I can go there. So I began to connect with people, and I said, I want you as a facilitator to film a client And I want to be able to tell this story of how this client gets in touch with their intuition, and then we can all learn from these beautiful messages.
In a way that would incorporate some native philosophy also. So that's when I met Chief Golden Light Eagle. He's Standing Elk at the time, and that was about 2004. But he was really welcome because our first trip to Wagner, South Dakota, just down the way, I was traveling with him in a truck, and some prairie chickens flew across the road, and they're quite similar to our native or our pheasant population. They look like female pheasants, but he's correctly identified them as prairie chickens, and it kind of caught my interest. Then we talked about white-tailed deer extensively, and I thought, well, this has a world of potential, because the opportunity to see these birds hit the water is something that is truly monumental and something you won't forget the rest of your life. Are you familiar with these, what we call fish hawks and fish eagles? Yeah, some people are. They have about a 6-foot wingspan, quite a bit lighter than bald eagles. But when I met Golden Light Eagle, he did confirm that there was a bird in their oral traditional stories called the Hoga Wambli, the fish hawk or fish eagle.
So 2018 is when the activation of the verbal channel started. I was doing channeled letters, doing things like that, but I wasn't letting them speak through me. So today we're going to be interactive. We're going to get a lot of beautiful things going. If you guys feel some energy coming through, as long as it's not really disruptive, this is what it's about. We're all sharing. We're all bringing those channels through. And it's a very beautiful, powerful energy.
Looks like this diamond on the right side there. It was a diamond-shaped craft, and this one was much closer. It was like only a few houses down. I was looking up, bending my neck, looking at it. And then I started to kind of shake because my mind's trying to compute what I'm seeing. It was very close. I could see all of the details of it. And it seemed to read my mind, and it went up, down, side, side, and then it started coming straight for me and then disappeared right above my head.
At North Carolina State University with Darby Orcutt, who recently just came up and went on a 5-day camping expedition with me to the place where I had sent him some hares in Minnesota, and he came to come see that place because he was like, those hares were really interesting, Jen, I need to come up there. So he went on a very long trip, and he came and spent 2 days on my reservation with me, and then he spent 3 days at the property where I sent got the hair from, where I had 2 Class A sightings of my very own in the daytime. So right now I'm going to tell you about strange lights. We've been investigating reports of Bigfoot sightings, and around the area of Bena, Minnesota, and 6 Mile Lake, which is a different reservation. It's also Ojibwe. Native people living there often report seeing strange lights, and then they soon see Bigfoot right after that.